Hello everyone, so this is our first fifth lesson. This is covering the lab for classifying organisms. So Unit 1, Lesson 7. Our objective for today is to state the levels of taxonomic organization and illustrate how each level is related to the one above it and below it. So I broke this out into two I can statements. So the first one is I can list the levels of organization in order from most broad to narrow. And the other is I can state how each level is linked to the order above it and the one below it. So how do we make our table? When you open up Lesson 7 in Unit 1, you're going to see there's a worksheet for you to print off. So in that worksheet, you're going to have cards that you can print off or just have the file open, and we're going to use those to help us create our table. So you can either print them off and cut them out and use them, or you can just write them on a piece of paper, or you can type it up on a document, whatever works best for you. First, you want to find the domain. So why do we start with the domain? Well, because remember that there's only 3 domains. Okay, so there's more kingdoms, more phylums, more classes, more orders, but with the domains there's only 3. So you find your domain that's in the flashcards, start with that one. Next, find the card that says it's a subgroup of that domain. And then you keep doing that process until you have all the cards laid out. So once you find the subgroup for the domain, so that would be your kingdom, you want to find the flashcard that is a subgroup of that kingdom, and you want to keep going until you have all the cards laid out. So how do you read each card? So each card has the level of the name in bold, and then under that in parentheses it gives you a description or what you might commonly find in that area. And the last line tells you what level it comes after. So here's an example. We have our class of Mammalia. So that's going to be where all the mammals fall into. And we know that's a subset of Chordata. So that means that the Mammalia is the class and the phylum is Chordata. So now you know what order that falls into. Alright, so why do we use these charts? Well, they help us find organisms with similar traits, and we can use that to help trace back to a common ancestor. Or we can see how closely 2 organisms are related. So we're going to have a question here. We have beetles, and are they closer related to bees or to primates? So think about the characteristics of bees, think of the characteristic of primates, and see which ones you think, before we look at the table, are closely related to beetles. So if we start working out the scientific names of each of these areas, you can see that the domain is the same all the way across. And they even all fall underneath the same kingdom. But at the next level, so the phylum, you can see that the beetles and the bees are the same, but here's where they differ from the primates. And if we keep going with the beetles and bees, we can see that they're both part of the same class, but they differ on the order. So bees and primates, they split off at the phylum, whereas bees and beetles split off at different orders. So if you remember our level of organization, it goes from broad to narrow. So because these 2 split off later, they're more closely related. Alright, so this is one way you can type out your chart. So as you can see here, we have our domain, we have our kingdom, we end up having 2 different phylums in the cards, we have 4 different classes, and we have our orders, and then our families, our genus, and our species. So this is one way you can represent your table, or you can do it this way. So this, I printed out all the labels, and I actually took a cardboard box and some straight pins, and I went through and I started with my domain, and then I found my kingdom, and my phylum. In that case, you notice that we have 2. And then I went back to the first one here, and I found the class that falls underneath that one, and then I found the orders that fall underneath that one, and I went through and did the family, genus, and species. So this gave me I color coded it so it's easier for me to see and for me to work with. And then so after I made it the hard copy here, I was then able to make the chart that I was just showing you. Okay, so this is what you will need to work on to finish filling out the in-class work for Tuesday. So if you guys are doing this, how many of you guys, well, just looking at this as well, do you see any mistakes with the flashcards that we had? So I found 2 mistakes when I did this. So as I was looking through here, we're going through here, I got down here to Canis lupus, and if you look at the description of the card, it says domestic dog. However, Canis lupus is actually for the gray wolf. So the domestic dog is actually Canis lupus familius. So you have that familius at the end that shows that they're familiar with us. And if you look at the cards, this one here, for what they have listed as the brown bear, is actually for the black bear. So now I'll show you the brown bear one in this bit here. And then this one here they just have labeled as honeybee, when this should be the western honeybee. So you can make those corrections. Alright, so how to write the full scientific name? Well, you start with the domain and write down each level name in order. So if I was looking at, for humans, I would start with Eukarya, then Animalia, Chordea, Mammalia, Primates, Hominids, Homo, and then Homo sapiens. So you go all the way down the order. So would this be the best use of time if you're in a research setting to have to constantly write all of that down? No, it takes way too much time and it'd be really repetitive. So how do scientists write down the names? Well, normally we just break it down to just genus and species. So i.e. Canis lupus. But most often you even see it write even shorter because scientists love shorthand. So that's where you get the E. coli, which is a bacteria, and Euarchus, which is that brown bear. So in that case you keep the first letter of the genus and you write the full species name. Alright, so what do you need to bring with you to class? You need to make sure you have your chart complete, because you'll need it to do the in-class work assignment. And completing the in-class work assignment in small groups will help you complete the assessment for 1.7. Now your LC will need to grade the offline assessment and enter your grade into the OLS so that 1.7 gets marked as being complete. Alright, you will also need the word of the lesson. So this is the word I'm going to be giving you at different parts of my flip lessons so that you can write it on the attendance sheet for the day the flip lesson is labeled for and get credit for viewing the lesson. So this flip lesson's word is a lemon drop. So make sure you guys have your chart and you write down that word and bring it with you so you can get credit for viewing this. Thank you so much.